My name is Brendan Ryan. I work with Liffey Mills in Nina. We're up here in Culhane today with Michael Culhane. Michael buys a lot of calves. Michael, can you tell us where you sourced these calves originally?
Yeah, I sourced them from two farms. One in Clare, West Clare, and the Belgian Blues come from that particular farm. And then I locally source the more fast finishing animals like Whiteheads and Aberdeen Angus. I source those locally.
And tell me this, Michael, when the calves come in initially, what's the regime put in place?
Well, they've just come off possibly new milk on the farm, on their source farm. So when they come in to me, I normally like to give them electrolytes on their first feed here. I feel it's possibly just to settle them down, settle their stomach down. So,
Michael, when you initially bring in the calves, you start them on the adapter.
Adapter, yeah.
Which contains electrolytes and kaolin to prevent reduce toxins in the bloodstream. Now, then, what's your starting regime on the machine in relation to the feeding curve and level of powder that the calf can consume annually or daily?
Yes. Now, the machine, of course, does all the measurement of the powder and the amount of powder into the milk. But my belief is that about 125 grams of powder, milk powder, is mixed with a litre of water. They consume about 6 litres a day, therefore. In relation to that, that's about 725 or 750 grams of milk powder. I believe this milk powder contains whey and also skim milk. Now, the skim milk side of it, I suppose, brings it closer to what they were used to when they were on fresh milk, and it's more digestible for the calf. And as a result, I think it puts a better shine on them overall and thrive.
After that, Michael, what's the standard?
Well, then I feed them here on this machine here. I have an urban feeder, calf feeder, and the first day or two, obviously, it's about adapting to a new feeding method because they have to get used to the machine. So training them on that will be the first part of it. And then immediately after that, I'd move on to vaccinating them. I think vaccinations, the Risperdal, one shot up the nose, after about 48 hours here when they've settled. And I think it reacts straight away with them, and it's obviously...
You don't vaccinate for a couple of days after buying the calves in?
That's correct, yeah. Because I think when they're under stress, generally the vaccine is not as effective. So that's the reason I wait. You know.
And Michael, you invested in an urban automatic calf feeder. Can you tell us the merits of that and how you were getting on with it?
Yes, when I initially researched it, I think I learned that it possibly doesn't do the calf as well or as well as you might do yourself with the ordinary feeder, but it treats every calf individually, and from the point of view of what they consume every day, it measures it out and it gradually weans them off, which is the purpose, I suppose, of feeding them the milk replacer.
And tell me, is it all positives with the feeder, or do you see any negatives?
No, I don't see any negatives. Obviously, one negative would be if there was a power cut or a water supply interruption, then it upsets things a bit and you have to adjust again for a couple of days after that. But overall, I have very positive feedback on it. John.
Yeah. And what about one issue I have on myself? One issue I find with them is the teats.
Yes.
The teats tend to get used up very quickly. Do you change them often?
They do. Well, I think we were advised to do it every day. I possibly would do it once every 2 days. And I find that as the calves grow older, I bite through them and they possibly shred them. But initially, no, they work out fairly well, you know.
Yeah. Now we'll just go on to the calf ration, Michael. Yes. I see you have some Liffey Mills calf 18 ration here in front of the calves.
Yes.
How would you find the ration?
Very good, very palatable for the calves. I think the flake nature of the product, plus the fact that there's a slight mixture of molasses or a product that's like molasses, and it makes it very palatable for the calves. Of course, every farmer wants to see the calves moving on to meal as quickly as possible. So they get it from day one. They adapt very well to it, and I think their intake increases over time, and that's really what it's about, that they get the protein from the meal rather than from the milk replacer. So.
And tell me this, what is the story in relation to weaning calves? When do you wean them, or what do you think yourself?
Well, the programme weans them after about 55 days here, which they'd be of age about 65 to 70 days at that stage, weighing possibly in excess of 90 to 100 kilos. And when I estimate that they're on at least a kilogram to a kilogram and a half of meal. then they're ready for weaning. The machine does it all in a very stress-free way, and over a period of about 10 days, they move from full feed down to zero feed on the milk. And at that stage, the meal is the main source of protein for them then.
And can I ask you, if the calves were more advanced, would you wean them earlier if you thought they were eating that substantial level of meal? Or would you leave them until the 58 days?
Well, I normally leave them because it's difficult for me to estimate which calf is eating, consuming the meal, and who aren't. So overall, if 30 calves are eating over 30 kilograms of meal, then I move towards weaning the bunch of calves rather than an individual weaning.
And Michael, the plan with the calves, I presume, is to let them out to grass come early May or before, or when will that happen?
They normally go to grass around the early May, and I normally leave them in a fairly bare grass pasture, because I think fresh grass, with a flush of fresh grass into it, it sets them back. So I keep them on the calf 18 meal and leave them sort of gradually adjust to greener grass, but that might happen over a month or two. Initially, the amount of grass they consume will be very little, because the meal helps them to transition from the house out to the field.
Actually, another added addition with this calf 18 is it contains extra vitamin B1, which helps the calf against CCN.
That's right.
Now, tell me this. On grass, will they consume meal?
Yes, I continue the meal all through the grass season, from May right through to September, October, before they're housed again. So they get about a kilogram and a half of meal throughout the summer. I feel, even though the protein is in the grass, their capacity to consume a lot of grass is possibly not developed enough at that stage. So I keep them on the meal. I think it's one way of ensuring that they stay on target and their weights are sort of on target as well.
Dosing regime on grass?
Well, the dosing is normally based on dunk samples. We dunk sample the calves perhaps twice during the first summer at grass, and in response to that we dose. I normally prefer the white doses, the drenches, rather than the ivermectins. I find that there's a better clean out of the calves on the white worm drenches.
Okay, Michael, good man, thank you.